me just a minute. And I'm gonna pop out the chat. Ba-da-ba-doo-doo. And skadoosh. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to 3D Sculpted Printed Minis. Tonight, we're actually going to be doing something up several months early. You see, I've been commissioned to do some sculpts, and hello, Carlton. These sculpts are being made now so that they have time to actually get the prints done in time for Christmas. Yeah, how about that, huh? Yeah. Sweetie kid here. He's going back down on the ground. Yeah. And that means we're doing an Orky Santa. Now, if you're watching this after the fact, which pretty much all of you are right now, because there's no one in the chat yet, don't forget the whole like, subscribe, bell icon, usual nonsense. And yes, I have just crossed 600 subscribers. I average 3 to 5 people in the chat during broadcast and maybe 30 viewers, but I've got 600 and some odd subscribers now. Okay. Now, also, as noted down below, number 1, I've just started a new channel about old school tabletop gaming. I've had 3 videos up already on there. The first is just say, hey, I'm an old school gamer, I'm old. See, these are experience points. The second one is about dead game genres, like Western and, well, you'll get the picture if you watch the video. The third one is about the great cross-genre war of the late 80s, early 90s, and who won. Now, I'm going to just give a little bit of a little pause until see if we can get some people in here before I start doing the work on the on Santa. Now, some of you may remember the other day I sculpted that nobleman, and the general reaction was that he was one of the most punchable faces they'd ever seen. Well, even when painted up, he remains remarkably punchable. Let me see if I can get a better picture for y'all. The color will be off because it's being lit by the monitor a lot. But go ahead and change that autofocus. There we go. So yeah, even all painted up, it's hard to see, but yes, this is clearly purple, but the slashes are actually red. And then he's got the gems. The fleur-de-lis actually came up pretty darn good. And you just want to deck him. Just that smarmy grin and sneer. And yeah. Came up really nice. And hello aboard Trouble. Let me drop that focus back to, oh, there we go. Number 2, I have started my 3rd Kickstarter. Also linked down below. It's the Epic Enemies Kickstarter. Just to show you what it's like, I'm going to go ahead and this is Epic Enemies. Feldrakes. Frost Chimeras. Galteris Charbonnier, which you saw me sculpt this last week. Moalin Bonebinder and his spectral minions. Morkrun Greathorn, the Minotaur. And massive the Storm Wyvern, with potential stretch goals, including this Sea Drake. Yeah. Interesting, huh? So, anyway, that's the basic news right now. Also, I don't think that it will be very visible on the broadcast. But a little while ago, I found a nice particular shade of Vallejo Game Color Wash ink called Light Gray. I also got a hold of some, this is the Game Color Wash. Got it at the local hobby shop, the same one that Board Trouble and I actually game at. And got a hold of some Apothecary White contrast paint. Now, both are thin, liquidy washes for all intents and purposes. The intent behind the contrast paint is that you paint it over ivory or pale gray or almost white, and it makes it look white because of the way it shades. The light gray ink is just light gray ink. Well, I printed out 2 of my painting practice figures and primed them both with the same primer and decided to try them out. Now, before I show these, the figure with the gray rim around the base is done with the Vallejo ink. The figure with the white base, or stained white base, was done with the Citadel. Okay, you can't tell on this camera. Yeah, it's... The end result is that the Citadel, it was a lot splotchier. You can see how, using his sort of, you can see how down here it more than puddled. It got darker. It's also a similar problem on the inside of the shield here and down in the back center. It's also a cooler shade. Those same areas on this one, you don't have that puddling. You have less puddling, although it is still present there, and you don't have it in the back. It's a slightly warmer shade. The end result is that the Vallejo ink looks more like white than the apothecary white does. And as you can actually slightly see the difference in the tone. This one's a bit warmer than this one. Now, if I was going to use these to represent something that actually was white, I'd finish it up by giving it a very light dry brush on the male with white and edge highlighting some areas with pure white, because the base color, the base primer was not truly white. It's more of a very, very almost white ivory. But this one? What's this? Did you see that? If you grab my hand. Yeah. Yeah. Comatose. Until she wants to play. Set these back on the painting tray. So, now it's time for me to go ahead and get started and get ready to do our Orky Santa. So, why I always screw it up when I mean, nice and simple, but when I click that button... Anyway, we're starting with the basic figure. Well, obviously. And also, obviously, we're going to go ahead and just make him Orky. Now we're just going to... There, he's an orc. Content library, we're going to load in the tusks. And those tusks were made for an earlier version of the orc morph, so we're just going to kind of drag them into place and then scale them up a bit. Okay, there we go. That's pretty good. Nice and tusky. The next thing we're going to do, I'm going to open... well, first I'm going to load those tusks onto the jaw so that they follow the jaw. And then I'm going to open the mouth a bit. And I'm going to import a file from my old Orc Horde. The reason being is because, let's see, list. Where would it be? View large list. I'm trying to find the teeth that I made. There it is, smiling teeth. I'm gonna drop this down and close a little bit up, and I'm gonna close the mouth just a little bit. The intent being that he'll be a smiling Santa. Now we're gonna raise the brows a bit. Once again, he's gonna be a smiling Santa. And before we do anything else, there's two things we need to add. We need to add his hat and his bag. Now, for the fur on his boots, fortunately, I actually have something in place for that, which I have puffy boot cuffs. And that's the look that we're going to be giving the fur on the rest of him. I had originally made those teeth for the smiling version of my orc heads in the quite successful Green Tide. Now, we're going to just go ahead and export that. We're going to go to, no, not going to Freeze. I'm going to Commissions, Ornaments, New Folder, Orky. And this is going to be Raw Geo. Accept. Now, opening. See, that time it worked. 3D Studio Max. File. Import. Meshes. Commissions. Ornaments. Orky. Raw Geo. Import. Skadoosh. There we go. One figure. And let's turn this around. Yeah, what we're going to make is we're going to make his hat first. Now the way we're going to make his hat is very simple. We're going to start with a cone. Gee, shocking. Make a circle, bring it up. Cone. Now, bring this up to there. And it's almost looking like a dunce cap because it's sticking straight up. Well, what we need to do, first we need to make it a little bit larger on the bottom radius. Then we need to reduce the height segments to 3 and change the sides to 12. Lapse to editable poly. The next thing we're going to do, actually let's do it here. We're going to be connecting these right here because we'll end up using this bottom row here as effectively our what do you call them? The puff around the bottom. We're also going to now go to, actually let's select these vertexes. Oh, just these. You notice that despite there being only one point there, it says there's 12 vertices selected. Well, we're going to weld them. Now it's only one. Next thing we're going to do is now we're going to grow the selection, so we now include these, and we're going to rotate this back like that, and then pull it down to here. Looks extreme, but we're now going to take that selection, we're going to rotate it a bit more that way and pull back. Let's rotate it a little bit more like that. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to select all these, ring selection. We're going to connect once. We're going to pull it out a bit, and we're going to scale only in the X and Y. It's going to round it off a little bit more. Okay, now we're going to push it a little bit. Bum 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 bum, so that the overlap is kind of okay. And then we're going to taper it. There. But we're only going for the X taper. Collapse all. Select all the vertexes. A. And we're going to scale them down a little bit. Okay. We're going to grab this one vertex down here. Oh, I forgot to set it to vertexes. There we go. There's one vertex down here, and we're going to pull it out a little bit. Now we're going to make sure that this hat is centered before we do anything else. F12, 0. There we go. Now we're going to clone it. Edit, clone. Copy. Okay. And select these bottom ones here. Hold on a second. There we go. And Control I, delete. Also, while I'm thinking about it, we're going to select these bottom ones. Well, we're going to shrink so we only have that bottom center. Delete. Yeah. Now, this one we're going to push inward. No, let's go ahead and just do straight to shell. Shell, we're going to go to about that far out, and we're going to go a little bit in just so that it overlaps. Collapse all. We're then going to take and go to Editable Poly. Ring select. We're going to shrink it vertically just a little so that it'll round off a bit. And then we're going to drop it a little bit further than the rest of it. Okay. Now let's go ahead and just give it a mesh smooth once, twice, and push. Okay. Now that will end up given some furry texture the same way his ankle boots are. As for this, there's still one last thing to do, and that's I need to put a puffball on the end. So we're going to go with a sphere, simple sphere. I'm going to leave it exactly as it's shown, but I'm going to stick it up here, just for the sake of putting it there. And I'm going to move it to here. Okay. Oh, but that was not meant to be. It's not supposed to be a NURB surface. Editable Poly. There. So as you can see, we now have a nice low poly hat. But what I'm going to do real quick for this hat, I'm going to shell in. The reason for that is that makes it a single solid surface and it's easier to deal with in ZBrush. I'm also going to select these bottom edges in an Editable Poly, loop, and I'm going to chamfer them not so far. I'm going to have a nice rounded edge on the bottom that's not going to cause it to lose its shape. And then mesh smooth. And we're going to be drawing on the wrinkles in the fold of the hat when we get to sculpting. There's our Santa hat for our orc. Let me go ahead and select the parts. File, export selected. Pom pom. Meshes, commissions, ornaments, Orky. Wavefront OBJ file. Z hat. Export. Done. Now we're going to have to actually wait on making the bag until we get our orc into proper pose. But we can go ahead and file, import, commissions, ornaments, Orky, Z hat, accept, and parent that to the head. Same way we've got the teeth parented to the jaw. So, what we're going to do is we're going to hide the hat. And we're going to hide, let's make those teeth parent to the head as well. We're going to hide the boot cuffs. Because everything we do for the next few minutes is going to be entirely pose. Now, the thing is, he's going to be a bit more cartoony than the standard version of my orcs. What this means is I'm going to select his thighs and calves, make them shorter. Oh, I forgot to select all, Y scale. I'm going to make them a little bit wider and the same amount thicker, 128.8. Obviously, this also means I'm going to be tweaking the butt a bit. Now, the next thing is I'm going to select the forearms and upper arms and make them shorter. And then the torso and that, I'm going to scale them down just a little. Well, let's make the X scale and Z scale of the belly a bit more. Again, we want this to be a bit more cartoony. Now we hit Control D to drop to the ground. And just to show you, just make his hat visible real quick. And the boot cuffs. Now what we're going to do with the boot cuffs, in order to counteract what we did with those, we're going to select the calves or shins on the boot cuffs only, and we're going to Y scale them a good bit. That'll do. Because we want it to retain the detail. And that is the proportions for our Santa Orc ornament. Now, what pose should good old Santa be in? Well, dragons don't either, and one of the ornaments is a baby dragon with antlers tied to his head and a ball stuck on his nose to cosplay as Rudolph. Anyway, so what kind of pose should we give him? Will he be like, being all evil and stuff with like having, will he be, yeah, I think we'll do that. We'll have him like holding the bag and be like, treasure. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to lean him forward a bit at the hip. Bend back at the chest a little. Also, while I'm thinking about it, using the Ork body means smooth torso needs to be at 0, because otherwise we get some weird overlaps. Okay. And we're going to kick the legs forward. And the left arm, we're going to drop it at the shoulder. We're going to pull the arm forward and elbow forward. And then we're going to bend the hand. We're going to bend the fingers. Now the thing is, we're going to make 2 versions of the hand. We're going to make one where the hand is bent like this, and one where the fingers are or straight like this, and one where the fingers are bent. The reason for that is because we're going to do a version, we're going to have one of his fingers poking out, pointing in the bag. And it's a lot easier if we already have some fingers. Alright, now we're also going to kind of shrink them fingers, because the bend is a bit too much. Yeah. Now we're going to have this arm, shoulder coming forward and also down. Because it's going to be holding the bag. Yeah, they left it holding the bag. Okay, we need to make those legs come a lot further forward. Sorry, I just looking at it from the side, and then have the feet come back a bit. Foot. Oh, foot. There we go. Now we need to go ahead and let's rotate the hand so it's supinated grip. And we're gonna sometimes you got to move it to make sure you're going to be rotating it in the right way. We're going to shrink that thumb a little bit because it's a bit too long for a good grip of the bag. Now right now it looks a bit more ape-like than I would have wanted it to. But that's okay, we can deal with it when the sculpting comes. We can fix the face, we're going to definitely be fixing the hips, and so on. Now we're going to go ahead file, export, and we're going to replace raw.geo.obj. Save, yes. Now the thing is, this is also going to need to be about 2.5 inches tall, so we're going to end up increasing the size of the default figure. As things stand, well, let me go ahead and go back in there. Content library. As things stand, let's pull up that height measure. He would be the equivalent of about 6.5 foot tall figure, which means this is 32 millimeter scale right here. We need him to be at least 65 millimeters. In other words, a little bit bigger than this. Let's go ahead and go to him. Parameters. And scale. go up to about there. Yeah, that'll do. Delete. Frame. That is the size we need our big old Orky to be. File, export, raw geo. Yes. Accept. And then back to 3 Studio Max. File, import, raw geo. Import. One thing I was requested to include in his bag, visible at the top, was a D20. So that's gonna be the next step. And so here he is. All right, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to object color. Make it a bit easier to differentiate between things. As you can see, he is not on the ground. So let's delete that, go back to Dev Studio, hit M and Control D. Drop him on the ground. File, export, raw geo. Yes. Except we back to here, file, import raw geo, and this will take a second because it's multiple. Import. Now get some soda while it's doing that. Oh, and just for reference, I am going to be painting the various soldiers as well as Morkrin Greathorn. I might be getting a friend who professionally paints to paint our good necromancer here. Okay, so there's our buddy, and he's green. That kind of makes him almost look like an evil, toothy leprechaun. They're after me, looky chobs! Okay, so first thing we're going to do is I'm going to have to make the, no. Okay. I'm going to have to make the D20 that's going to be on top of the, oh, Nikes. Look at the feet. Ah! Stupid feet. Front view. Select the foot. And rotate to the side. And up a little. And left view. Okay. Down just a little. And the toe up just a little. Okay. Now, select both of those. Figure symmetry. Left to right. Accept. Bing. There we go. Control D. Drop. There. Perspective view. There we go. The feet are good. So now we're going to export it again. File. Export. Raw geo. Yes. Accept. And then file, import, raw geo, import. Okay, now he's red. Well, that's better, but he looks more like an imp. Let's go ahead and make it like a blue. Okay. That way I can see him here, but he's not overwhelming the scene, and I can see him here distinctly. Okay. The first thing we're going to add is the D20. Now, the way to make that is with what's called a Geosphere. Segments, I believe it's 2. No, let's try 1. Yeah, so one segment creates a D20. Now, those who are familiar with the D20, you'll see what I mean when I compare it to edible poly. Smooth collapse. See there? It is automatically just a D20. I don't need to do anything to it, except later on I'll be sculpting numbers into whatever faces end up upright. So, boop. I'm just kind of randomly spinning it just to make sure that it's idly sitting in the bag, and it's going to be near the top. It's also a bit too large, so we're going to shrink it down a bit. It needs to be clearly in the bag, but also clearly at the top, and it's going to be what he's pointing at. I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Yeah. Okay, we can make it a little bit smaller. I'm probably going to end up making that face there a 20 because that seems to be what he's going to be pointing at. Alright, now just to make sure it doesn't collapse when I mesh smooth it, because right now if I mesh smooth it, boom, it turns into a ball. We don't want that. I select all of the edges. I give them a 0.001 chamfer. That means each of those edges is now 2 edges with a slight plane between them. And when I give this one a mesh smooth, it just kind of turns into a rounded edge D20. Kind of like a Chessex D20. Screw that, I hate Chessex. Well, I don't hate them, I'm bored by them. Undo chamfer. And this time we're going to redo it, but instead of only having one edge chamfer amount, we're going to have 2. Okay. Now when I do it, mesh smooth 1, 2, it's sharper edged. It looks more like those metal dice sets. And if you wanted to paint it metal, no one would blame you. Now that's the only thing we're going to make right now for that bag. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a ball. A sphere, a regular sphere. We're going to center it just over here, just off center. And it's going to end up mostly being in contact with the feet without really overlapping them. We're going to raise it up most of the way, but not all. And we're going to convert it from 32 segments to 10. No, 12. Edible poly. We're going to take these vertexes here at the bottom and bring them up to zero. Let's give them a height of 0. And then the positioning of 0. There. And we're going to move the pivot to a height of 0 because we're going to be scaling this a bit because that's a bit too small for what we want. We can pull it out further if we need to. This needs to be a big Santa bag. There we go. That's good enough. And then just to make sure it's not on the feet, we're going to pull it a bit forward. Yeah. Now, we're going to select these vertexes. We're going to bring it up to here. We're going to rotate them. Make them a little bit bigger. And go down so that they're about there. We're also going to pull this back to here, and then select here and pull it back to there. Now I'm going to take those top edges here, and we're going to delete them. Because we're going to end up morphing that into the bag. But we got to make sure we've got other things in that bag. We can also now that we've got our angle, let's go ahead and take that and let's rotate it like that, just to get it off-centered. and the slightly leaning forward. Okay. Now we're going to give it a shell. We're going to make it 2 inward. No, 1's good. Collapse all. However, we're now going to select the bottom center vertex. Okay, bottom center. Go back to editable poly, and now we're going to grow the selection. Ignoring that, we're now going to take and select the inner rim, the inner ring rather. Here, ring. We're going to connect it. Now, I'm going to shrink it a bit, and we're going to collapse it. Collapse. We have 1 vertex. We're going to bring it up top to here. The reason for this is this makes our bag mostly solid, with only what few things we're going to toss in here visible. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to select the 2 edges at the top. We're going to loop. We're going to chamfer them. We're going to do like we did for the hat. We're just going to be enough to kind of round off the top. Then we're going to select this one, however. We're going to do a little bit tighter by giving it 2 loops. Mesh smooth. 2 loops, let's track. 2 loops, let's track. Yeah, there we go. Collapse all. Now, for right now, you can see clearly the intent behind this figure. And I think we can take that D20 and move him a little bit deeper in to make sure that he overlaps with everything in there. He just needs to be visible. He doesn't need to be sticking way out saying, "Here I am! Da-dum, da-dum, rock you like a hurricane." Alright, now we're going to make a couple small boxes that are going to have 3 lengths each direction. And we're just going to make cube about there. This is going to go in here. Alright, now just to make this into a, we're going to hide it, everything else but it. And what we're going to do, go to editable poly, we're going to select, actually no, we're going to select these polygons, extrude, local normal, not so far. Just enough so it sticks out visibly. Okay, then we're going to, oh, I forgot to click OK. Yeah. Yeah, then we're going to select these right here and extrude. We're going to reduce the amount that they're extruding just a bit so that it's clear they're going under, except. And then we're going to make it a little bit longer like this so that we can make sure that it pokes through, so when it comes time, it's going to be made into one thing. Okay, that's our present. Yay, done. Unhide all. Okay, now we're going to take that present. We're going to select all of the edges. We're going to chamfer 2 levels, 0.01. Okay. And then mesh smooth 1, 2. Collapse all. Actually, no. That's not good. Edit collapse all. Edit, undo parameter change, undo add modifier, undo chamfer. Yeah, we need to only select these because we don't want that. Yeah, there we go. Now chamfer. There we go. Mesh smooth 1, 2. Yeah, you can't see it. You can barely see it, but right down here, it's a smoother blend. It did have those lines clearly visible. We don't want that. Collapse all. And effect pivot, center to object. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do what we did with the D20. We're going to burp, then burp, then burp. Then we're going to rotate it slightly until it's not like clearly poking through the top of the D20. We're going to move it just a little bit this way. Alrighty. Now we're going to hold down Shift and click and drag a little, and it's going to make a copy. We're going to shrink it down a bit. We're also going to change this to parent, or local rather, so that way we can make this one like a long, flat package. And we're also going to kind of just let's bring it. We're going to bring it over here. Okay. We're going to kind of, let's go ahead and make it bigger. Because we want these to kind of poke through where the current boundaries are. Because we're going to end up, local. We're going to end up sculpting the bag to fit around these as opposed to the other way around. Yeah. There we go. And let's make that a little bit bigger in length. And we're going to use that. We're going to move it down deeper in so it's going into the top. And that's all we really need for that. It gives the message across. So we're going to select all of those. That is our bag. File. Export selected. Z bag. Export. Done. And delete. And go back to DAZ Studio. And File. Import. Z bag. Accept. And that is going to get parented to the right hand, just to make sure we get everything right. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hide the bag. We're going to hide the hat. We're going to hide the boot cuffs. We're going to export this as Orkbod. Accept. Then we're going to take those fingers and change the bend to 0 and the X scale to 100. We're going to file, well, just see, is it touching? No, it's not touching D20. File, export, Orkbod straight finger. Accept. And then we're going to hide him and his teeth. Make the hat visible. Make the boot cuffs visible. File, export, or close, accept, and hide them again. Bing, bing, and make the bag visible. File, export, or bag, accept. Now we're going back over to here. We're going to delete him. File, import, Orkbod. Now you may be wondering why we're doing this. It's because I'm going to cut off this finger. Okay, now let's see. Where would I need to do it at? Let's go to Smooth with Highlights, Edge Faces. Let's do it here. Loop, split, delete, cap holes, collapse all. And then we're going to export it. File, export selected, Orkbod. Yay! Done. Delete. File, import, Orkbod straight fingers. We're going to do the same thing, but this time with his finger being straight. Loop, and we're going to now into there, split, delete, delete. And this sucker, we're now going to cap holes, collapse all. We're going to inset that a bit so we can okay, so it'll smooth better. File, export, export selected, Orkbod straight finger. Export. Done. And now we break into ZBrush. Hey, Michael! Well, it's not so much that I've done this before, it's that I've been using these programs for so long. You see, there's one thing I never understood. Santa gives the bad kids coal. But one of the big problems back then for the poor people was keeping their houses warm in the winter. So, Tommy, you were good. You get a present, but you'll freeze to death. Bobby, you were bad. You don't get anything, but you get to live. I mean, hey. Alright, well, let me go ahead and, document new. New document. No, I don't want to save changes. Okay, import. Meshes, commissions, ornaments, Orky, Orkbod, and just load in him. Then we're going to go to Subtools, Insert, Import, Ork straight finger. Oh, I forgot to turn on edit. Yeah, there we go. Yep, see? It nicely, perfectly sticks out. Now, insert, Polymesh 3D, import, Ork bag, insert, Polymesh 3D, import, hat, or clothes. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to hide everything except for the finger. And we're going to fix that hip area. That's the first thing we need to do before we do anything. We're going to do that by smoothing it, but we're going to use a low intensity brush. Just kind of come around like this. Then we're going to get the inflate tool, make it really big, but make it weak. Well, not that weak. And break out. Come back here. Break up. What the heck? What is trapping it? Something is trapped. Oh, it got wrapped around that. Dagnabbit. Let's get that done. Because I gotta have enough space for it to come around and actually be in my lap. Okay, here we go. Alright. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to slowly inflate these areas, both to thicken up the thighs a bit and to get rid of that, or to minimize that crease. Just a little bit of smoothing. And then a lot of smoothing on, a lot of smoothing on the bottom of the crotch area, because that's kind of no. Yeah, there we go. Now, on the butt, we're going to once again minimize that butt. I'm going to do it by smoothing it out. Let's do that. Now, after we smooth it out like that, we're going to shrink the mouse. And we're going to drop the intensity down. And we're going to slowly start building up above those butt cheeks. Carry on the massive shape. We want it to stay hefty looking. Don't care about him looking like a warrior, because this is Santa Orc, not Satan Orc. Which, by the way, would be called a Tanaruk. That's the actual official word, official term for a half-orc with fiend blood. Not a tiefling, it's a Tanaruk. Kind of blend that in, because we don't want butt cheeks. Orc butt cheeks is me. Not for me. Frame out. Now, we're going to use the Move Topological tool. The reason for this is so that way we can make the smile without tweaking the teeth. Just that little bit, and he's now a smiley little orc. Well, you need to grab this side and pull it up a bit more. I'm gonna grab these guys and pull them up. There we go. Oh, this one needs to come up more. There we go. I also need to kind of pull these back a bit to make sure that it blends. Will it blend? I think I've made that joke more than once. Okay. Now, we're going to smooth out. Let's kind of smooth out the chest area because we're going to need to put a jacket on him. And the jacket will cover up most of the chest. It's also going to end up smoothing out the back. Smooth out the shoulders. Once again, the jacket. Now before we do anything else, since we got the face done, time to go into geometry, subdivide them a couple times, delete lower, zoom out a little bit, and then we're going to Dynamesh at 1024. Dynamesh. Bing. Okay, perfect. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to shrink the mouse a bit. We're going to smooth over the crotch here, the crotch seam. Okay. Go. We're going to smooth over the butt seam, because this is eventually going to go the horizontal wrinkles, not vertical ones. So we want that to be very smoothed. Yeah. And now you'll notice his finger looks weird, because his finger is still low poly. We're going to go to it, we're going to go to geometry and divide, 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 delete lower. Go back up to him, frame in, let's frame in on the finger, convert to transparent, go to him. Now we need to make sure we kind of pull this part of the hand down into the finger. We're going to use the regular move, not the topological, and we're going to kind of grab it here and pull it forward like that. Kind of pull it out. Okay, now we're going to grab the finger. We're going to grab the bottom of it and kind of pull it upwards, because it doesn't need to be that there. Now, turn off transparency, and we're going to merge down. Geometry. I'm going to make sure it's Dynamesh, so we can just click and drag and it'll Dynamesh. Now we shrink the mouse and smooth. And this finger has always been part of the hand. I don't know what you're talking about. See, it's just, there's not even a seam. Yeah. Frame out. Frame out. Now there's two primary things we need to do. Oh, we also need to kind of smooth over this right here. You're gonna kind of inflate that zone to make it a straight. And I'm going to smooth it out. Now we need to tweak on the bag. We're going to start by splitting off those parts of the package. Okay, now we're going to subdivide this a lot, delete lower, and Dynamesh to 512. Now we're going to use the move tool to manipulate it. What we're going to do is we're going to grab this part of the, or let's turn on transparency. We're going to grab this part bring it up, grab this part, kind of bring it down, and bring the whole thing over into the hand. I'm going to grab here and push in, pull it back out, grab here and kind of pull it so that it's not, fingers aren't poking through. That's a lot of pull. Something's got a lot of pull. Alright, that's good enough for just getting it in the basics. Now we're going to use inflate, and we're going to kind of inflate this whole area right here to make sure it prints well. We're going to also kind of inflate there. We're going to move once again to kind of pull this out from inside that one present. However, we're going to grab here and going to kind of pull it in. We want to hide the fact that this is empty except for the D20 and the two presents. We just kind of want to do that. Okay. And then we're going to go and we're going to start with, well, actually before we do anything else, we're going to go to auto masking backface mask. We're going to grab here and pull out. Then we're going to clay buildup, also backface mask. And we're going to start increasing the size of that bag. Because this needs to be kind of large and kind of, well, that's too big. It needs to be kind of large and kind of bulky. So it's kind of, oh, it needs to be bigger. We're just kind of working with the shape here. Give it some irregular shapes to it to make it look like it's a really big bag that's been partially emptied by this greedy little orc who's pretending to be Santa Claus. I'm gonna kind of follow on here. Let's transparency on so we can get into here. Yeah. Get really big towards the back so that it will help sell the center of balance. On transparency, frame out, and we need to go ahead and grab that move tool once more. Kind of grab it and turn off backface masking on the move. Let's turn on transparency. We need to pull it so that it's allowing the D20 to be visible. Yeah. Then we need to go up here to subtool, select these guys, and go to move topological. Make it really big. And, oh, wrong one. I need to go there. I need to move this sucker out of the corner of the D20. Okay. So that's his current bag state. And we're going to give it a little bit of smoothing just to make it look soft and bulky. We don't need to worry about these sharp lines of wrinkles because this is Panda's Magic Bag. Okay, let me get some soda. And yeah. Oh yay. Alright, this is a bit of a minor emergency that I'm shocked has never happened before on this broadcast, but it has. I am developing a migraine right now, and I am unable to continue for the next half hour to an hour because I will have no vision. I get what's called a scintillating scotoma. A portion of my vision just kind of goes away. And right here, right now, I cannot see. No fuzz. You got to go back down on the floor. You know, my stuff's still in my lap. So I've got to go ahead and make a kind of an emergency. This is it for the broadcast. I will likely just go ahead and finish that sculpt. You've already seen the basic looks of it, and you know it's all going to be good. So I am sorry for this. I mean, it's barely been over an hour. Sorry. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.